Do we have the one for pizza?
Yeah.
Cái máy con trắng.
I think this is there. Yeah, I'll just leave it here so I won't forget.
Or maybe
Right,
portable
okay.
microphone? Do you have one of those?
Yeah, it's good.
Do we
You
have,
sure?
we have portable microphone? Need one for tipping.
That's okay, that's okay.
If you don't do it.
I've done the equivalent.
That's good. Oh. Your screen.
Hmm.
Your screen is this one. So. Do you need to have
Yeah,
those
I
two?
don't want that. We're just gonna change, so.
That's better? Yeah. So, is it your choice?
That's what, yeah. Okay.
Vậy lần mai đi rồi các bạn em mình mai đi rồi đấy. Đi đến đây mình năm ngoái chị không nhớ cái đây chị anh đi đến rồi anh thà rồi ra mình coi gì anh ra anh
You gonna start us off?
Yeah. You need introduction or no?
Yeah, let's start us off. Yeah. Oh, look at this.
Yeah. You even need now. Hôm nay có ai biết chị con không được biết?
You put it in.
Bây giờ lên
It's good.
em vui rồi không? You want to introduce something or you want another stuff?
That's all good. It's all good. We'll just get going. No, there's no need. No need. Yeah, it's all good. Okay, will we start? Duke?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming. And special thanks to Duke and Knowledge Bridge for organizing these wonderful sessions and also the Vietnam Academy. So we're very appreciative of the support. And as you know, Knowledge Bridge does a fantastic job of building the research capabilities of all Vietnamese people wherever they are. And it's great to do these workshops in site. So interrupt me at any time, ask any questions. We're going to do some hands-on exercise for all of the topics. So you'll get to work in groups, some individually. So I'll assign you each task when we get there. So let's start with qualitative research. This is on page 45 of your notes. It's really 44, but I don't want to say 44 because it's unlucky. So it's on page 45 of your notes. So we're going to talk about why qualitative research methods should be something you have in your toolbox of research skills. Yeah. So we're going to, yesterday you talked about systematic lit reviews. Yeah. And that's a field that's changed very much. It's changed a lot in the last couple of decades. And what we're going to do today is talk about qualitative research, survey research. Yeah. And after lunch, we're going to talk about experiments and capital market research, econometrics. And then finally, we'll conclude with what the editors are looking for across all the fields. So as we do each topic, each research methodology, well, we'll do four things. Number one, what is the state of the art? So what is the current best practice in this research methodology? Number two, what the editors are looking for, what you should pay particular attention to. Number three, we'll give you some really good examples of the use of that methodology, and then we'll go to where to from here is number four. So where can you go for further information and further resources? So qualitative research really has a place, right? Even for heavily analytical, empirical fields like my field, finance. In fact, I've just written a book on how to do qualitative research, and the foreword to that book, which you have in your course pack, was written by Campbell Harvey and John Graham, who are past editors of the Journal of Finance and past presidents of the American Finance Association. And they indeed are doing survey research in their own research, and they're also doing qualitative research. Yeah? So they think that that is the way of the future, and that the book represents a line in the sand. And the only way you can get at people's expectations is by doing qualitative research. So if you want to think about doing a project and you have all these skills, you could get a paper out of a systematic lit review on your field. You could get a paper out of a qualitative research on that topic in your field. So the system, think about the systematic lit review as telling you what the experts think, what the professors think. But the qualitative research, where you talk to real people, you get to find out what real people think and what's important to them. And that might be quite different from what the so-called experts think. And so you can combine those two things, the systematic lit review, plus the lived experience of people, and that can help you design a survey. So whereas a qualitative study might be only a quite small, like 30 plus people, the survey, you probably want to get 1,000 plus if you can. Yeah? So that might, the systematic review plus the qualitative study might inform you of which questions to ask, right, in the survey. And out of the survey, you might think, well, I can test some of these things that have come out, some of these obviously, important things to people. So you might design an experiment, or you might do a statistics econometric study. So we're going to cover all of those methodologies. So, you've got to find that qualitative research is very demanding, right? You mightn't have thought that it was. You might have thought that it's easy to talk to people, but it's not, right? So there's a lot involved, So, and we're going to give you some really good examples of qual research being done. So the seminars, the workshops I enjoy the most when the speaker starts talking about how they had a conversation with a CEO or a financial planner or a market maker, right? And that inspired an idea, right? And normally they write an empirical paper on it. But what they could have done is they could have done a qualitative study. They could have spoken to 30 financial planners or 30 regulators, right? And done a good qualitative study.
This one, huh?
Yep. So, if we don't take this opportunity to talk to the economic agents, we're missing a great opportunity, right? So the scientists would love to be able to, do the research more directly. That is, speak. Just stalled. Hang on, it's just stalled a bit. Yeah, they would love to be able to talk to the atoms, molecules, and compounds. And ask them: Is there a Higgs boson hiding down there? Right? Is that really the building block? But they can't, right? But they must look at us in despair, saying, "Well, you can talk. You're studying economic actors, and you can talk to them. Why are you just looking at the revealed actions?" So we can do that. We can ask the CFO, we can ask the market maker, we can ask the fund manager, we can ask the regulator what they're doing. So it's a great opportunity. And this guy, Lintner, in 1956, so it's a long while ago, 70 years, he did that. He went out and talked to CFOs about how they pay dividends. And that became the famous Lintner model, which is still generally accepted to this day. And by the way, that's the same Lintner that's part of the Sharp Lintner CAPM. Yeah? And Lintner didn't get the Nobel Prize for the CAPM. Sharp did, but that's only because Lintner had died, and they don't give you the Nobel Prize for post whom after you die. If they did, then Archimedes would win it every year, so that wouldn't be fair. So here's where it's very rigorous, right? A lot of people say, but you know, yeah, I understand about asking people, but they mightn't tell you the truth, right? Well, of course we know that. And also, but the empirical data on prices and returns and volatility might be inaccurate also, right? And so what do you do with that sort of data? You check and double check. So in qualitative, you do something known as data triangulation, right? So you do the interview, but it's a good idea always to record the interview. And if you're doing it on Zoom, you can get the video as well. So if you're sitting across a table from someone and you're recording it, the notes you make, they don't know what notes you're making, but the notes you make could be observations, right, on their body language, whether they're looking you in the eye, whether they're, looking, what their body language is showing you. So there's not only what they say, it's how they act. And you might be, interviewing them about how they treat women in the firm. But coming into the interview, you seem them act disrespectfully to a woman in the office, right? So that's observation. And the other things are documents, right? You might be talking to a bank about its services and everything sounds fine. The body language is on point, but then the documents reveal that there's been a huge royal commission into, not only this bank, but all banks, right? So you can find, verifying or conflicting information by doing this data triangulation. Yeah. So that's, that's very, rigorous, but it's not just data triangulation. You can do participant triangulation. So say you're studying a financial disaster. There's been some financial disaster. Well, everyone talks to the investors who lost their money, but you're only getting one side of the story, right? So it's also a good idea to talk to the financial planners who are probably being blamed for this, but you might find that, they just gave their advice the same as they always did. And also might be good to talk to the regulators, right? Because they might get the blame for it all, but they might say, well, but everything seemed okay, right? In fact, the best movies or the best books I read are where they give you the same situation that happened, but they give it to you from many different points of view, right? So that's what you do with participant triangulation. You can view the thing you're studying from many points of view, not only the investors who lost their money, but the financial planners who lost their reputation and the regulators who, got panned for not doing their job. Right? Not everything is as transparent as it seems. The investors might think, well, they doubted me. Financial planner might think, but I followed all the prudent advice. The other form of triangulation is researcher triangulation, right? So you do that right at the beginning with your, what it is you're studying, the research question. And then as you think about what questions you're going to ask, it's a good idea to tie each question to your research question, right? So you should have a table and you might have, 2 or 3 research questions. And then every question you ask is tied to that research question. You're not just asking a bunch of questions which you're going to analyze later. They're all tied to your research question. Yeah? You don't have a hypothesis as such, right? You're just studying the fallout of a financial disaster and maybe how to avoid it happening. You're studying the fallout of a big flooding event. We have a lot of flooding events in Australia. Yeah, the fallout of the flooding event and what can be done to better prepare. It's a good thing to study because every year in Lismore and the northern beaches in New South Wales, we have the same flood. It happens every year. So it's a good thing to revisit because you can see whether your remedies that you put forward are actually being effective or not. So you see how rigorous that is, right? So the data triangulation, the data, the observations, the documents, the participant triangulation, the financial planners, the investors, the regulators, and the researcher triangulation. So when you come up with the coding, you've done your say 50 interviews and you have to go through and code what they're saying, right? It's a good idea if you do it and another researcher does it and you see what you come up with, right? And of course, now you can ask AI to do it as well. So you've got three. AI can do it, you can do it, your fellow researcher can do it. And in fact, long before generative AI become popular, University of Queensland had something called LexiMancer. You got closer?
Is our bedroom.
It's not working. Forget it, use another one. So we don't have it yet, but soon there'll be a AI version that'll help you do the coding. But you still need to have the human touch, right? So you do the coding, you're working with Duke, she does the coding, the AI does the coding, and then you compare. Yeah. So with the coding, you might end up with like 50 codes, right? 50 sort of things that come through. So that's your initial themes, and then you'll then revisit it to see whether some of them can be combined, and you'll have intermediate themes, maybe a dozen, and you see some of those can be combined into a broader, and that'll be your final themes. So it might only be 3 or 4, right? But what really helps the scientific process here is researcher triangulation. If you do it, Duke does it, and AI does it, right? So you've got the 3 different viewpoints of what the codes are. And then you iterate until you're close to having the same themes. The other thing that qualitative researchers do is they keep memos. Yeah. And for those of you who are accountants, this is like an audit trail. So someone can go back over your work.
Want to change another one for you.
That was not working either.
The other one's in the.
I don't think any of them are working.
Yeah.
None of them are working. Maybe got to turn them
I
on.
turn on, yeah. I turned on before and it was okay. Yeah. No, yes, good.
Yeah, hold down a bit more. No, that's stop. Push the button again.
We can make it like tắt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So memos, yeah, and it's like an audit trail of what you're doing. So one is methods. You might have asked, questions about, their age and where they live and all those things up front. But you might find that a lot of people just stop, oh no, I don't want to do that, right, and walk away. So it's always best to ask those sorts of questions, like, where they work, what they earn, what their age is, at the end. Once you've captured all of the information that's truly related to your research question. Yeah. Look, I'm going to tell you a secret. Most people don't like telling you their age. Yeah. So you don't ever ask someone how old they are. You can do age brackets, that might work. Yeah. And most people don't want to tell you how much they earn. So you don't ever ask that. You might use income brackets, right? But don't ever ask those questions up front. Do them at the end, right? Because you might lose people. They might say, no. So you then record in the methods, okay, I shouldn't have done that. I'll have now in the future, from here on, I'll ask those sort of questions at the end. And, reflections. Well, you might think, okay, I'm already seeing a really important theme coming out. I'm studying financial abuse of, from intimate partners, right? And after only a couple of interviews, I'm already seeing a very big theme, right? That, the abuser is being enabled by, the Social Security scheme, the Social Security authorities and the financial institutions like banks. They're actually not helping the victim, they're helping the abuser. So there might be a big theme already coming out after just a couple of interviews, and you do the reflection. That's separate from the themes you're going to come up with at the end, but it's just a reflection, right? And then analytical, right? You might be, deducing something, or you might be doing some sort of inductive. You see something and you expand it to a general, right? And deductive is you start with a general and go to a specific. So, my colleague in empirical finance predicts returns, right? As a qualitative researcher, I'd have to put in the memo all of the variables I tried, but that they didn't work, right? So I'd be very embarrassed to write down 100,000 variables that I tried and didn't work, and I'm only reporting 5, right? So this is the standard of, that's required of a qualitative researcher, which would severely embarrass an empirical researcher. So you see that this is, it is a very rigorous and demanding area, and it takes a lot longer to do qualitative research than it does to do statistical or econometric work. So people say, but, in qualitative research, the samples are like 30, 50, 70, whereas, I deal with intraday data and I have several million observations. Well, that's true, but, there's something called saturation. After talking to 50 people, you might find for the last 10 interviews that no new themes, or your themes are increasing like that, but then they flatten out. So that no new themes are emerging. And people say, well, but, you're just going to pick these 70 people. You're just going to pick these, it's not a random sample. You didn't go to the phone book. Well, let me tell you, empirical work is not random either. People study takeovers. They go and look at firms involved in takeovers. It's not a random sample, right? So most of the studies you see are not random samples, right? And in qualitative, it's purposeful. There's no good going, if you're studying financial disaster, it's no good going out talking to a random group of people. I can assure you that 99.9% of them haven't been involved in a financial disaster. So you've got to find out absolutely nothing. So you're best to look at the people that were involved in the financial disaster, talk to the investors involved, the financial planners involved, and the regulators involved. That's what's known as purposeful sampling. And you want to take into account how different the people you interview are from the general population. Well, you can get the characteristics of the people you interview. We know the characteristics of the general population because we do a census every few years. So you can compare the characteristics of the people that did the interview with a random sample of the people in your country. So you all think you can talk to people, right? So you all think you can talk to people. We're good. We talk all the time. I talk all the time, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be good at doing an interview, right? So it's got to be focused. It's got to be focused on the research question. I have this grand idea that if your job, the job you're doing matches your vocation, you're going to be a really happy person. Like I am. So I love my job. I do it for nothing, right? So in fact, I am doing it for nothing, Duke. So she's not even listening. So if your job matches your vocation, then I think you'll be really happy. But I have no idea how to do qualitative study to get to that, right? Because if I ask them what I asked you what job you've got and what vocation you have and whether you're happy, there's really no way I can get to what I'm after without leading you to it. But I'm not allowed to ask leading questions. I'm not allowed. I could wait until you're on your deathbed and talk to you, but you're not going to be worried about a job, or a vocation. You're going to be worried about the time you spend with your loved ones, or things you didn't do. So there's really no way, yeah, that I can get at that, what I think is like a universal truth, but there's really no way that I can do that without, here are two things: avoiding leading questions and hunting. There's a bit of feedback too. There's a little bit of feedback on the Zoom. So really got to avoid leading questions, and you can't without hunting. So that makes it more difficult, right? You just got to ask the questions and let the participant go with where they're going to go. You can't bring them back there. No, let's talk about your location and job. Is there anything? Is there anything? You can't do that. It's silly to ask, when you've got a blind person in front of you, it's silly to ask yes or no question or A, B, C, D, E questions, because you can get them to give a full answer. So, and you've got to avoid questions with hidden meaning, right? So some words are very loaded. You need to be very careful. So, for example, if I ask you how much debt you're prepared to take on to gain an education, I think you'll give me an answer. If I ask you how much you're prepared to invest in your education, I think you'll give me a different answer, right? Because the word invest is a very positive word, but the word debt is a very negative word, right? So I could influence your answer. Every someone will look at say, well, that's the same question, but it could lead to very different outcomes. So here's this, remember I said that you should tie your interview questions to your research questions. So here's what the editors say they would like to see in your qualitative paper. They would like to see your research question here in the first column, and in the second column, they'd like to see what question you ask the participant. Now, let me tell you, there's a lot of questions here. I wouldn't advise asking a lot of questions. I would keep it brief. People want to think that it's not going to take. When you ask someone to do an interview or do a survey, they'll do it because you're asking, but they really don't do it, right? So you really want to keep it as short and sweet as possible. So if you send me a survey to do, I'll do it, but I'll do it as quick as I can. And I'll be horrified if you've got like 50 questions, but I'll be very pleased if you've got 10 involved. So we talked about research triangulation. Well, that's important with your themes. So you would go and read all the transcripts, and then from each transcript there'll be various things come out. So you'll keep a record of them. And you'll come up with, there'll be lots of duplication. Then you'll come up with the themes that come up most, the themes that come up most often, and then just the themes that come up most. So there'll be a long list of the themes. So then you'll see if you can put those themes together in like groups. So then you come up with intermediate themes. And then finally, if you put those intermediate themes into groups, you'll come up with your final text. Your choice, whether you do it the old-fashioned way, which is reading, having a transcript in front of you and cutting out themes and putting them in a pile. So one thing might end up having 30 people saying it, another one might have 20, another one might have 10, 5, done 1. So that's one way of doing it. And if you're only ever doing one qualitative study, that probably makes sense to do it that way. But it's inconvenient, isn't it? You've got a desk tied up with these sort of themes. And so if someone comes up and wants to clean the desk or opens the door and the wind blows it over, then you're in trouble. So instead of doing manual scissors and swords, you can use qualitative data analysis software, QDAS. So something called NVivo, that's in its like 15th version. It's pretty good. It actually just starts with the same system before, but you do it on the computer. But it gives you the word counts and things like that. And soon they'll be adding an AI feature, right? So that's the way at the moment you're just doing one study for your say a PhD in qualitative, you might decide, well, I might invest in learning a qualitative data analysis software because it's just going to be updated with AI anyway. I'll just do it by simple results. So here's an example of the iteration of these. At the bottom, we've got the first iteration, and they've been grouped into the second iteration, and up the top we have the third iteration, with a couple of big overriding themes. So I prefer to have the initial themes on the top, intermediate themes in the middle, and the final themes on the bottom, because that's the way I tend to read right from top to bottom. But you see the point. So this is what editors would like to see. And you can see for those that have got a quantitative background, this is very good because it's showing you, letting the reader know how you progressed, and so they and try to replicate, they can see whether they come up with the initial themes, with another group of people, what themes they come up with, and they can compare it with yours. When you're writing this up, you'll tend to give quotes to illustrate the themes. So what you've got to be aware of is not giving too much, too many quotes, and not giving too little. The idea is the reader sort of can pull out what the themes will be themselves. So just enough, and it's called the Goldilocks effect. Not too much, not too little, just right. Right. So in terms of how many quotes you give, you bear in mind the Goldilocks effect, right? So remember, she tried the different soups. One was too hot, one was too cold, and one was just right. And then the final thing that editors like to see is your findings, and alongside that, the source of the findings. So you see the finding one here. It comes from interviews, observations, and all of your memos. So it's quite a strong finding. Finding number 3 is very strong. It comes from interviews, observations, documents, and a memo. Right? So it's not an F test like you do an empirical, quantitative research, but it's getting close, isn't it? It's getting close. So what your main findings are, that is your final things, and what was the main source of those findings. So it was interviews, observations, documents. That's quite strong. I haven't actually talked about what qualitative research is, right? So qualitative research is talking to people, either one-on-one or in a focus group. The other thing is observing people, but it's not a survey. The survey is regarded as quantitative research, because you get all the results and you analyze it with quantitative software, with statistical packages. So the elephant in the room is, what you think of the world. On the left-hand side, we've got people who think that there's one absolute truth. There's only one absolute truth, and it's black and white. As you go along from left to right, on the right-hand side, every one of us lives in a different world. We perceive everything differently, right? And remember, I talked about the researcher triangulation. That can be very helpful because everyone sees things a little differently. So, my view, they're pretty much at the far left, and we think there's one absolute truth. But if we want to talk to the justice system, the police, they don't believe in that, right? In fact, that there's a crime, the police love with one very competent witness. If there's 5 witnesses, they're in trouble, right? And you know why? Even though all 5 witness the same thing, they all will have different versions of what happened and in what order. And so when it goes to trial, the defense attorney will point out all the inconsistencies in their evidence, and the case will be dismissed. right? So that tells you these people aren't trying to lie. They're giving testimony as to what they saw, but they all saw different things. When I walk into the room, right, I don't look around at everything in the room. If I did that, that's why robots have trouble. If I did that, I'll be scanning everything here, right, to know whether I can take a step or whether it's safe or not. I have a map of a room in my mind, right? I don't actually see most of what's in the room. I just have a map. Knowing will be a walkway and a lectern up the front, right? But I haven't noticed everything in the room. It's a very, very rare person that notices everything, right? And they've normally got something wrong with them. That's they've got some sort of not disorder, but it's got a name. I can't think of it. But they notice everything, and it's tough on them. So they can tell if anything's out of place in a room. So, the truth is we do see different versions of reality. And that's why I tell you, I love the books or the movies where they talk about the same situation, but from different, or show it from different points of view. And it's quite illuminating, right? How differently people see it, right? Your action might be, considered very, generous by some, or self-seeking by another, right? A lot of it depends on how they see the world, right? Their theoretical orientation. So this is very important. So it's important in your paper to state, what your theoretical orientation is, right? So people know. And also important to talk about your lived experience, right? The researcher as instrument. If I've worked in investment banking for many years, and I'm studying investment banking, well, I should reveal that, right? That I'm, not a complete objective observer. I've actually worked in this industry for a couple of decades, right? So that can help the reader see through your lens, what's going on. So, and I've written a little paper there about the theoretical perspective. So I told you about Lintner, right, where he went out and interviewed people in industry, asking them how they pay dividends, and from that he actually set up an equation for how dividends are paid, and that's it's now 70 years later. It's still like the benchmark for how firms pay dividends. And, as I said, the editors of the Journal of Finance are now doing qualitative research. They're definitely the top journals are publishing survey research and experimental research, but now you're right on the cusp of a wave for a whole lot of qualitative research coming in, especially if you're doing it in the rigorous way I suggest here with the data triangulation, researcher triangulation, participant triangulation. I was editor of a special issue for the Australian Journal of Management. One of the papers was Financial Crisis. Another was How the Funds Choose Fund Managers. Another was on self-managed super funds. There wasn't any data available at that time. Another Vietnamese lady looked at tuna fishing in Vietnam, My Boat, My Identity. And a top woman in finance went and studied why top women leave. Not how they get there, but when they get there, why they leave, and a lot of them leave. So that was very interesting. So in Australia, at least, right, ethics is very important. If you're doing any research involving human subjects, you have to get ethical approval beforehand. So, even the great universities have trouble with this, right? So I'm going to give you examples from Yale, from Stanford, and from Princeton. So the Yale experiment is very famous, right? Came after the Second World War, and Professor Stanley Milgram was testing people's obedience to authority. Remember the German, officers who were being prosecuted said, well, we just did what we were told. We followed orders. So, is that a convincing defense, right? And so Milgram was studying this. So there was a teacher-student situation. So the teacher was the participant, right? So the teacher was the participant and the student was part of the experiment, right? So the teacher, who was the participant, would go into a room. In the room, sitting on a chair, was a person in a white lab coat, yeah, with a folder in front of them. And the student was in another room. So the teacher didn't see the student, but the teacher had a bunch of questions to ask. So the teacher was told to ask these questions, and and eventually the student would get one wrong, and the teacher was told to push a button, giving the student an electric shock. And the student would scream, but they weren't being electrocuted, right? So no students were injured in this experiment. So the only one that could suffer damage is the teacher, right? But that's more emotional. So finally, the student got so many questions wrong that the teacher was instructed to push a button that said severe shock, 450 volts. We all know 120 will kill you. So imagine what 450 will do. And guess what? A lot of them paused and said, but that will kill me. And the person in the lab coat with the clipboard said, it is necessary for the experiment. And 2/3, 66% of the teachers pushed the button that would kill the student. So, they're going to feel very bad about themselves after that, right? So they should have had counselors there, but obviously they're going to feel bad. This has been replicated. You can't get ethics approval for it, but documentaries and shows, and again, it still works out that 2/3 of the teachers push the button that would kill the students. It's an alarming revelation about us as human beings, right? So that would never get approval now, because imagine the emotional distress for the poor students when they realize that they were no different from those Nazi officers in World War II. So where to from here? Pratt talks about how to write up, qualitative research. And Farah, I used, this is a lot. I used a lot of what they said, tying the questions, the interview questions, to the research questions, iteration on themes, tying your findings to the source, the observations, interviews, focus group. Silverman is still going. He's in his 90s. He probably, Duke, if you ask him to come here, he probably will. He's a proselytist. Just be careful how you say that word. He's a proselytist for qualitative methods. And he goes around the world, giving workshops and helping young researchers with their qualitative, right? And he's well into his 90s. So he's like an amazing man. Patton is probably my favorite book. Yeah. And so that's out there. And then I wrote a paper on theoretical orientation, but I also wrote one just on the state of the art in qualitative research. And you'll find that most universities will have a course on qualitative methods, right? So you can do the course. The other thing to remember is that now universities give a lot of courses for free online. They don't give a whole degree for free, but you'd probably find a really good course on qualitative methods that is free online. So here's my text on qualitative research in finance. I'm not saying to go out and buy it, but it just shows that I'm into, because a lot of my students do qualitative research, and I try to make sure that I'm on top of all of their methodologies. Yeah? And that's got chapters on how to write up the qualitative research, but we'll talk about that as well. I don't want to register for anything. Yep. And I think you have the forward to the book by Campbell Harvey and John Graham. So that tells you that these people that were editors of Journal of Finance and presidents of the American Finance Association. Now, I think that qualitative research has come think I've got some, systematic lit review stuff here.
Yes, yesterday.
Yeah. Only 49 documents. Your search wasn't good enough.
It's about ESG Vietnam, so
I
it's
know.
still, under research.
Yeah. I think there should be more than 49 documents.
Yeah. Okay.
Here's the
What-
course material.
what-
I'm just getting out of this, getting back to my Zoom. I'll find it. Leave it with me. I'll find it.
Yeah.
Let me get back one more.
Okay.
Yep. So where to from here? Yep. So yep. Where to from here is all of those, books and articles, and I have a text on it. So now I want you to go to page. I think it's at the back. Uh-huh. I want you to go to page 396. And you know, I've been working very hard here, so I'm going to take a break and you're going to do a group exercise. And what this is, the purpose of this is researcher triangulation. Yeah. So we're going to form you into five groups of five. Yeah, roughly five. It can be more, but roughly five. And the question is, I've got responses from over 100 teachers of why they become teachers. So in your group, I want you to develop the themes. Yeah. I don't want you to use the qualitative data analysis software. I want you to use scissors and thoughts, scissors and thought. So what are the top three reasons, right? So you might have a lot of initial themes. Out of these 100+ people, you'll have a lot of initial themes. Then you'll aggregate them to intermediate themes and finally to final themes. So why don't you form into groups and we'll start doing this and then appoint a group spokesman that speaks at the end and I'll write up what the themes are on the board. But I bet you the five groups, because you're triangulating, will come up with very similar final themes. And that just shows how scientific the approach is, right? This triangulation really does work. So Duke, we might need your authority here to get people in their groups.
Want me to organize?
Five groups, they can just turn around and talk to each other. Yeah, for example, these two people here could come and turn around and talk to these four people here. Yep.
These two, yes.
We just include in the first candidate category.
So the reasons are here. The reasons are here in page 397, 398. Yeah, you've got a group there. You've got a group there. You can just turn around and you've got a group of five.
For the age include.
Five each. It can be more.
Can we more?
5 or 6, 5 to 7. Yep, that's good. They're going to turn around and face each other. There's got to be movement involved.
Even small house to be on solar.
Yeah, to do this work, yeah.
You can do it. You can do it by yourself. So we'll do individual versus triangulation.
Như này chọn. Chưa sợ đẹp. Chờ.
Chị assistant đấy.
Nhìn hỏi nhớ anh cái của đấy ra cái tim thì nó sẽ phát trên bài về cái tim của mình rồi cho cái chị mình mở ra mai tâm thế thì sao cũng chờ xem không rất sẽ này.
Someone's asking a question here.
But to explain the exercise to and then let's see.
I just want to, someone's asked a question here.
Yeah, we analyze on the data from
Yeah.
Dạ rồi cảm ơn Liên ạ. Nhìn họ ra những cái sáng sẽ ra biển của
Duke, Duke. Man. Duke.
Yes.
Someone's asked a question on Zoom, but in Vietnamese.
Really? No, don't worry. They just Ruby just give instruction how to do the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
không tin thì sao người ta lại chờ mình đã ở sao thì bây giờ mình nghĩ là sau cái ảnh hưởng liên quan cho đang đi ăn đến tiếp cận núi ơi
thấy đường tắt xíu.
đây cái cỡ nó đang như để đọc ra
Page 397. 397. And Duke, we don't have a pen.
Second, so we get thank you.
bạn bị trên đâu mình dắt không bên đi là
Just a pen, a black pen.
okay cho nên chị
Okay.
Another chair. Let's try the chair.
No, that's okay. So I'm on a platform, so
Okay. Do you want any more drink?
I'm good.
Cold?
I'm good. I'm good.
Nice.
Water's good now.
Okay, I get you more water.
No, the room is cooled down, so it's good. No, it's good, it's good, the room's cooled
Want
down.
the, it's
That's
cool
good.
it down.
No, it's good, it's good, it's perfect.
Perfect. And I just make it lip your I'm sorry.
For 397.
Okay,
You can write, let's write page 397.
397.
Yep. So everyone, it's on, all the responses are on page 397. Yep, yep.
Three nine seven is the solution. Solution 397.
Đây, thấy thấy trả lời đi nè. Địa phương là yếu thành là uống sữa trà thì nó làm có ví dụ tất cả em ai cũng gọi là ăn có ăn của sư nhân có người thầy thì sao lại nghĩ được tìm ra ba cái này nữa.
Cái này sai giờ song sóng không hết.
Yeah, that's right. That's all right. Yeah. We've got time.
stream.
Back to me, I control that. Bring it back to me, I control it. Bring it to me. Mine.
Wait, so color.
Mine. Well, compromise. Compromise. I like it cold. Well, you're too kind. Thank you. Thank you. You're too kind.
Discussion.
Thank you. So that's so nice. Thank you.
The coffee, iced coffee, how you want to make milk with condensed milk or with the fresh milk?
Condensed milk is good. Yeah,
It's like the Vietnamese style.
yeah, it's good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Strong or not strong?
Medium. Medium.
Medium,
Yeah.
like the one in Hanoi.
The one that knocked my head off.
You remember that
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
Okay, so I make you that one, yeah?
Thank you.
Okay. Hot coffee or cold? It'll be cold.
Cold. So, we'll take a break at 10 once they report back and then
Yeah.
we'll,
But you know, while you're working, you can have,
yeah, and resume at 10:30.
yeah. You want me to turn on the camera for you?
No, it's okay. They're on
The
Zoom doing.
camera I turn off the camera for you so you can.
No, no, no problem.
I'll eat, in the break at 10.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. It's okay. I didn't see it. But,
Yeah, yeah.
all right,
Yeah,
all good?
yeah, all good.
Okay. So take the way, huh?
Yeah.
You copy paste. Yeah.
All good. Oh, that's good. Thank you.
You want the, you got another one?
Yeah, I'll throw this out. There we go. Yeah, thank you.
You got another one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's even family actions. Bây giờ xem react xíu thì mình còn là những hoàn toàn không phải bị con nhé cũng là nó sẽ là công việc dạy quan điểm
I saw her, you're being nasty. You're being naughty. Naughty Nan. We'll put you in the corner, facing the wall.
They don't have the bread, don't have the tea bread. I take the photo of them.
ท้อผู้ชายแล้วที่เราเป็นสองการเป็นคนแรกก็คือ
One question in the chat, you want me to read out for you?
Yeah, what's the question?
Give me a second.
What's the, Wi-Fi here too?
Oh, Wi-Fi here.
So, H3HK Connect? H3HK Connect?
Then,
VAA Connect? Oh, this is okay.
no, viết trên bảng luôn đi em biết. Oh,
I'm not ahead of this.
so the participant can have to.
Thank you. For the people. Thank you.
Okay. Rồi,
Okay, you have 5 more minutes, so start preparing your report. Start preparing the report. Top 3.
tomorrow, if you have it's okay.
Sure.
What's that? We can have it tomorrow.
Lunch. Oh, yeah, fine.
30? Yeah,
Stretch.
yeah, tomorrow too.
Yep.
Cindy and you here.
All right. Thanks so much.
We're moving okay. We can be coffee in the music and coffee in time.
Yeah, other side. Thank you.
Thu Nguyễn đó đó chị đó đó đấy chị đây
mốt với hai chương trình S để con có thể riêng ví dụ như có liên quan riêng không có riêng của con nó có
còn ngồi đây bị căng buồn mũi hả buồn mũi đã tối hết rồi chị còn lại người làm phần đem chat rồi
Thank you.
Some peanut? You want some peanut?
No, I got some.
I give you some straight one. Give me this one.
nature đi vào chim để cái quy hoạch nó
There.
Okay. Tissue. You want tissue box? I take it away, okay? Sorry, please.
There.
Let's turn off the camera.
No, I'm about to start again.
Hit the camera.
I'm about to start again.
No, here. You put here.
Oh, yeah, I'm about to start.
Oh, you just start. Okay. Just bring up here, give you some break. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, the background is okay, but you know, it just don't see you.
Thế chứ lại tí ở chỗ này em lại thay lộn chỗ này answer chứ không phải là questions.
Vậy thì em viết vậy đi. Chị copy rung rung thôi mà. Em gọi chị gì vậy? Nãy em gọi gì vậy?
Em gọi em nói có bạn ấy thôi chứ đâu có gì.
À xong.
Sao bây giờ trí nhớ của bạn diễn ra là những người
Người đẹp này đâu thử mình.
Có nên gọi hai không? Cho bác biết cà phê Việt Nam mà ở dưới pha này.
hay là em mời cà phê Việt Nam. Phải gặp nhau được muốn gì xin nấu hay là
Any cold drink like
No.
smoothie,
No, that's not what this is.
Highland coffee, anything?
This is cold, this is it.
Good? Yeah.
Okay, let's report back.
Hey, back to.
Let's report back. So, group one down the front here. What were the top three reasons that people become a teacher? Who's the spokesperson? Don't be shy. Top three reasons. Oh. Okay.
Wait. Oh.
Someone brought it.
Okay.
Very good.
Stop the Rosie.
I think that extra will come here
Yeah.
and write out the keyword.
No, I'll do it. Oh, you want to write it? Okay.
You do it.
You do
and then they come. So you write.
You're right. Okay, so this group,
Teaching assistant.
first group,
The first group.
Key, are you talking? Who's talking? Key? They might need a thing.
And you want to try by yourself.
No, you're talking. Write it more.
We have 5 group, right?
So three,
And 3.
so no, we've got 6 groups.
And 3 present. Okay.
Phải là gì đó.
Hello everyone. Hello everyone. I would like to say the 3 reasons that we would like to talk about the 3 reasons that lead us to choose the teaching profession. Well, the first reason that is because when we teach, we will have flexible time and
I think just keyword.
to care for our family.
Now, number 2.
Yes, the number 2 reason is we have the passion in learning new things.
Passion for learning. Number 3.
Okay, that is
What's the button? Yeah, I don't know.
learning and passion for learning and
Number three is we want to make an impact in the student life.
Impact on students. Yep. Learning and what? Now?
that's why it's the passion for learning teaching.
And teaching, yeah, and teaching. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
Hopefully you can write.
Hello. Discussing in my group, we have three reasons based on the last three questions. With quite a lot of responses. The first, the focus is designed to make a positive impact.
Positive impact.
And the second one is like for research and so like civil society problems.
Yeah,
Research. Research.
passion for learning research, yeah.
And family support on career.
Yeah.
Environmental.
That's right. Family support. Yeah, family support.
Yes.
And that's why that's some time. Okay, group three, please. Three.
Yeah, me as the president. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I can okay. Okay.
Someone get a photo.
For group three, we have the first thing is that the people love playing with children, love children. And the second thing is about making tasks. And the third one is flexible time, which means they can okay, I think this sounds right.
They got the photo. That's the money shot.
And that is not.
Flexible time. Fine,
Yeah.
for flexible time. Okay, group four. You're all doing very well. And it's natural to be shy. Don't worry about being shy. One.
We have sent through the responses from the participants and we have agreed on the three key things. The first one is to improve future generations.
Impact.
Yep, making impact.
The second one?
The second reason for choosing teaching is a love or desire to work with kids.
Love kids.
Yeah, well, it's-
Okay.
And the third one is the motivation from other people, like teachers or family members. The inspiration or motivation,
by
inspired or inspiration from other people.
yeah.
Yeah, that is our group answer.
Thank you. Okay, group five. Put a line here, yeah.
After look at the responses, our group come up with five reasons can be this and all.
That's right.
Okay.
That would be fair to the other groups.
Okay. So I think the biggest one is the love for children.
Children.
The second one is the desire to make difference
Impact.
and make impact.
Yeah.
And okay, and the last one is motivate inspired or motivate by the teachers.
Okay, and keep your powder dry on the final two. When we do survey questions, I'll come back to you after the other two. Okay? So now group 6,
We have 5 groups.
only 5? Okay. Group 6?
No, I'm just the representative for the online participant. So I think the ideas are similar to group 4 and 5. So there are 3 repeating themes: like love for children, making impact, and the last one is motivations for teachers and other people.
Okay, thank you. Thank you online. Okay, so what you've seen is a great example of how triangulation works. In your group, like 5 or so, right? And you all agreed on, love for children, making impact, flexible time, basically. There might have been one of the others. And then each group, working independently, come up with basically the same 3. And that shows how rigorous and scientific the qualitative research is, right? So it gives you a very good example. But it is very good to do it in, have the researcher triangulation, right? It really adds to the scientific credibility. So what we're going to do when we do surveys, we're going to have to come up with a way to ask the questions. Ask questions about why people become teachers. And it's not as straightforward as you think, right? Remember, we really can't go hunting for an answer, and we can't ask leading questions. So we'll have to design questions that will tease out why people become teachers, right? So this qualitative study can form the basis for the questions, right? We probably also would have done a systematic lit review that would have given us other reasons. So we combine the reasons in the systematic lit review, what the experts think, with what real people, real teachers have said, and that enables us then to design the survey question. But it's a lot harder than you think to design the survey question, right? And we'll go through that. So we will take a break now. The online people will be very patient and they're complaining that they're tea break. So we will take a break until 10:30 and then we'll come back and do surveys. So, Duke, I'm going to stop recording. I just want to pause. Wait a second.
No, stop it. I make a new one. Stop later.